I got a question about how to go from high notes to low notes on the flute. And the specific question was about high D to low D in Mozart. So there are a few things that we need to take a look at. The first thing to check is if the notes that you're moving between have different fingerings, we have to make sure that they're perfectly aligned with the changes that you're making here with your air and your embouchure. So if those fingerings are not completely locked in, then you're going to have a little bit of messiness between those notes. So for example, the example that we were given from high D to low D, we have to make sure that this change is happening at the same time as the air and the embouchure change. So if I don't line those up, we can get some messiness. The next thing to address is going to be the air. So when you're playing notes that are higher, the air goes more across the lip plate, and when you're playing lower notes, more proportionally more air goes into the tube and less goes across. So when you're moving from that high D, there's a higher proportion of air going over, and when you go to the low note, and you can see my embouchure, watch the change. So I'm using more of my top lip to point the air down for the low note, and my embouchure is a little bit more out when I'm playing the high note. So that actually kind of leads into the next idea, which is your embouchure. So the air, of course, for high, more is going over. For low, more is going into the tube. But that air is controlled with your embouchure, right? And so your embouchure is this collection of muscles that all work together to point the air in the right direction. And so it's going to be a little bit more across and out for the high note. When I drop to the low note, so you can think about it in different ways. I think about what works for me is to think about my top lip. So for the low note, I feel like my top lip is pointing that air more down. However, you can also think about it as being more out for the high note, or you can see that there's a little bit of jaw movement going on here. That jaw the lower jaw seems to come out a little bit more for that higher note. So regardless of how you're thinking about it, and different people sort of latch on to different ideas depending on how their brain works, the main idea though is the same. And so if you keep that fundamental idea the same, which is for high notes, more air is going across, and for the low notes, more air is going in. If you're getting that to that same goal, the way that you get to it doesn't matter quite so much, as long as we're not compromising sound quality. So one last thing to just think of to make sure you're not doing. For the low note, we don't want to go, we don't want to drop our head like this, because that covers too much here and you get sort of that muffled, unfocused sound. So you do want to use your embouchure to change the direction, not your head. For the high note, we want to make sure that the air is controlled and we're not just blowing wild and crazy, because then you also get a sound that you don't want. And I have other videos about this as well, about playing high notes and playing low notes, but this one specifically is talking about navigating that change. So again, you're thinking about air direction, you're thinking about your embouchure, and you're thinking about aligning your fingers if there is a fingering change involved going from one note to the next. So give that a try. Let me know how it works. If you need help with it, let me know. I offer a free trial lesson for new students, and you can find that information below or in the caption.